Social media can be very interesting. You can use it to learn a lot. I use it a lot to do surveys and research. But sometimes things come across your computer monitor that are just disgusting. And that was the case this week when I learned that a hashtag from way back in 2010, I think was the first time I remember seeing it, was back on Twitter trending once again. That hashtag is pound it's not rape if. Now, I'm going to talk about that, but I also want to talk about it within the realm of women living in a rape culture as a whole, because you can't really, it's like you being sick. You have a sprained ankle or something and acting like the only thing that that ankle is going to affect is just your ankle. Well, it's not. It's going to affect your knees, your hips, your back from the way that you have to walk, or you're compensating. It's the same thing that happens in society and in a culture where 50% of that culture's citizens, 50% of the world's population, are living in terror of being victimized in a violent, disgusting manner by the other 50%. So I want to talk about this rape culture, and I particularly want to focus on what we as parents can do to educate our sons and daughters about what behaviors constitute a sexual assault and or rape. And the importance of that will become more obvious as I go along, but in study after study, it has been proven that these this kind of information and education must begin when our children are adolescents, if not even before. Teaching your children that no means no, and that they don't have the right to try to make someone else do anything, to touch you. I mean, this is key. And I, I'm kind of stuttering here, which is not my usual way. Usually the words just flow. But I have so much I want to cover. I'm thinking ahead and talking at the same time. But let's start first. Let's begin by defining what rape culture is. I think that is a good place to begin because most people don't understand it. Hear that term, they don't really know what it means. So, what you want to look at a culture is an environment. It's a belief system, and it's actions. So you put all that stuff together. That's a culture, and that our culture now has created an environment for women where rape is not only prevalent, but sexual violence against women has become normalized and is somewhat glorified in our media and music and literature on television. It's just awful the way that things are. Now, the rape culture is perpetuated through the use of misogynistic words, language and phrases, in song lyrics, through the objectification of female bodies, and through the glamorization of sexual violence, again in music and on television and in movies and that kind of thing. So basically, worldwide, what we have now, and oh, I forgot, and as well as in religion. So what we have now is a society that basically is worldwide, where women's rights and women's safety and women's authority over their own bodies are repeatedly violated by men. Even right here in the United States, even though this isn't necessarily rape, we still have some old ass, creepy ass, wrinkly ass, white, dried up white men in our government trying to regulate what women can and cannot do with their bodies with regards to birth control and abortion. So you see, it's the same thing. It's the same mentality at work. They want to have charge of your body and what happens to it. Now, you may think, well, I haven't ever been raped, that doesn't really affect me. That's not true. Living in a rape culture affects every single woman because every one of you understands the risk involved of you being out on the street at night by yourself. you understand when you see a crowd of men that you need to avoid them, especially if they're unruly and drunk, or they're acting stupid, catcalling and all that kind of stuff. You know, if you're walking by yourself and some guy starts following you, what that means. So no matter what you say, to watch your drinks when you go places. So see, no matter what you say about not having been necessarily sexually assaulted yourself, you still recognize when you're living in an environment where there is a threat of sexual violence occurring to you, no matter what you do, no matter what you wear, no matter where you are. The dangers are always there. Men don't have those kind of fears. I guess if they're in prison, they might. But in general, guys kind of go through the world in a carefree manner. They don't really expect to be sexually assaulted. They just don't, and so they don't have the concerns that women do. And the threat of rape, you will see a lot even online. That they think that by threatening you, it will put you in a position where you're subservient and meek and docile and fearful of this sexual assault that they're threatening you with, thinking I will cut your nuts off and make you eat them. How about that? And you might get that one little taste in, but you better run, because after that I'm gonna catch you, and it's gonna be over for you. That would be the last pussy you ever get, and I swear that's how I think. So when you looking at what am I trying to say? When you're looking at what rape culture is, you might want to have some examples. Say what are some examples of living in a rape culture? Well, some are that you blame the victim. This happens a lot. There's a lot of cases that I will be telling you about where even the judges got in on the act and gave these like ridiculously lenient sentences to men who were found guilty of sexual assault. We're not even talking about the ones who were tried and or who never got arrested. We're talking about guys who were actually convicted. One got 30 days for raping a 14-year-old girl who couldn't take the taunting that she was receiving from people in the town and classmates, because the man who raped her was a teacher. And he only got 30 days for that. She killed herself during the whole trial. Another case I found, a father got 60 days for repeatedly raping his 12-year-old daughter. The mother caught him in the act of doing it, saw him with her own eyes. Now, what made this case extra disgusting to me was the fact that when he was, during the trial, the man's mother and the mother of the little girl both wrote letters to the judge asking for leniency. Their reasoning was, well, because, my sons need their father. And, they need to still have a relationship with their dad. Okay, not one of them was worried about the little girl and her being assaulted by her own father. They were worried about the boys. And again, this is another normalization of sexual violence. Like, so what, she got raped. My sons need their father. That's more important. That's the general attitude of that little girl's grandmother and her own mother, which I thought was reprehensible. In another case, this judge was convicting he was hearing a case, rather. He's hearing a case of a 19-year-old accused this man of raping her. And he starts asking her, well, why didn't you, move your hips out the way? Why didn't you keep your legs together to block him from raping you? Not, why did you rape her, but what she didn't do to make him not be able to rape her. You see what I mean? In another case, this kid convicted of raping some college student. He got 20 years of probation and 2 years of work study. Work release. So that means basically what you have to do is you're out in the morning, you go to work, but you have to report right back usually within an hour or so after you are supposed to get off from work, back to the jail, and you spend your nights and weekends there. That's what that means. for work release. Another case, well, not a case, but a study result, 10% of female college students reported being sexually assaulted in 2015. Now, that's what they reported. And what I have found, though, is a lot of young girls don't understand what sexual assault is. So I'm going to be explaining that in a minute, too, what the Department of Justice explanation is for the standardized crime reporting. Because, each legal jurisdiction was using a different standard for what met the standard of rape. So the Department of Justice, I think it was 2012, came out with a new definition that was adopted by law enforcement agencies all over the country, so that there's one definition now for what constitutes rape. And therefore, the reporting statistics will become, as they start being collected after that time, a lot more accurate because everyone will be using the same measuring stick. In another case, we to look at, how people protect athletes, for instance. They use the excuse that, well, she's just trying to ruin his life. She's just ruining his career. His bright future is going up in flames because of her. Not because he couldn't keep himself together, not because he raped people. And, they try to blame the girl. And that is the one of the key components of rape culture, blaming the victim. There's a lot of trivialization of the sexual assaults that these people do with this boys will be boys kind of thing. And you're basically excusing their negative behavior. There's a lot of tolerance for sexual harassment. You got to think about why our government had to make laws against that so that women could be safe in their workplaces. I mean, who does that? Who thinks that was what you should do to a woman just because she works in an office with you or anywhere else? That's inappropriate behavior. But there's a lot of tolerance for it, and people think that for a woman to keep her job or whatever, she would have to put up with that. I'm thinking, well, think again. There's also guys who they'll take a case, right, where one woman reported a sexual assault that maybe didn't happen exactly the way she said it, or maybe didn't even happen at all. This one woman. Somehow that one woman is inflated to be all women, so that people, especially black folks, had this real bad, will totally ignore the realities of the case in front of them and want to talk about that one case like that is an example to hold up for all cases of sexual assault. And I think that's just stupid, but that's what people do. It makes it very difficult for us to get the women get to be believed when they report a crime, because they already know that everybody's going to blame them. So that's why a lot of sexual assaults, they say actually most don't even get reported. Another way that's an example of rape culture is the pressure on women to be, warm and friendly and to smile, and men call it scoring when they, getting a home run, all this kind of stuff, when they are accomplishing something sexual with the woman. I've actually even heard guys say that when a woman says no, what she really means is yes, and that it's her job to make him believe that what she's saying is no and that she really means no. So things like that, I think all of these things together cause problems and create the environment where we have rape culture. So let's talk about this Department of Justice definition, because I'm looking for it here because I typed it out because, it's like a lot of words. Okay, here we go. Okay. The new definition of rape is the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, comma, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person, comma, without the consent of the victim. Now that is key, that word there, consent. We'll be going over that in a minute too. So they had this press release, right? And I get all these. I just get way too much email, but this one I kept because it was so interesting. So in that press release, they say the revised definition includes any gender of victim or perpetrator and includes instances in which the victim is incapable of giving consent because of temporary or permanent mental or physical incapacity, including due to the influence of drugs or alcohol or because of age. The ability of the victim to give consent must be determined in accordance with state statutes. Physical resistance from the victim is not required to demonstrate lack of consent. The new definition does not change federal or state criminal codes or impact charging and prosecution on the local level. So they're basically saying they're not going to overrule with regards to sentencing or arrests, but that when they're going to reporting the crime, this is the standard that has to be met to be considered rape. Okay. So you can use rape can be fingers, it can be toes, it can be tongue, it can be an instrument of some other thing, it can be his penis, whatever, any kind of assault on a person's genitals or mouth with some other foreign object that they did not want you to stick in them constitutes rape. Now, why is this important? Because a lot of young women don't understand that. They think that in order for it to be rape, that there has to be blood and bruises and broken bones and ripped out hair, black eyes, and all this kind of stuff. That's not how most of it goes, since most of the rape victims, rapes occur by someone that the victim knows. And as an aside, what is really interesting is some years ago, I remember reading a study that was done by the United Nations. There were more than, I think it was like 10,000 people or so. I mean, it was just this like ridiculously huge study, and it was done in like Southeast Asia and a couple of other countries, and it was done over a period of 2 years. Now, that part I remember. What I remember also from this thing was that how many men believe that they have the right to basically to get sex from women at anytime they want it. So if they don't, and even their wives, they don't understand that you can rape your wife too. She also has the right to say no. Because you married to her, that doesn't give you, she doesn't become your sex slave. And people right here in the United States have the same attitude. So before you get all funky, start talking about, well, that was in Southeast Asia. Those men have a different attitude about rape. No, they have the same attitude here. Your average white boy and your average Negro have the same mentality about owning women's bodies, and they often use their religious beliefs as justification to shore those nasty attitudes up. So within that study, the researchers found that repeat offenses were very high among rapists. So you have somebody who's a rapist, especially these young college students, right? They get away with it a lot because the girls either don't report it, or even if they do, it stays within the university system, and they try to handle it without the police, and it just becomes this big nasty deal. But in their study, almost half the dudes said that they had raped at least one more person. And about 25% of them had raped like up to 3 people, and then there were some who raped more than 10 people. So once a guy gets a taste of that power and that forcing a woman to do that kind of stuff, I guess I don't know. They want to keep doing it. And these attitudes, though, about sex start at a very young age. So most of the guys who, when they start being rapists, they start when they're teenagers. And you know how I keep telling y'all not to have your young children around teenage boys. I cannot say this enough. They're young and stupid, and their bodies are just raging with hormones. You cannot trust a teenage boy in your house around kids. You just can't. And if you do, you're stupid. And I don't care about how great you think your son is. He's still a teenager and he could still slip up, and that's all it takes is 1 minute, 60 seconds, and it's over. Your son is now a rapist. So you got to keep an eye on them, and you also got to get in their head with some of this information I'm going to be sharing with you about what behaviors a girl will do and what things she will say that mean no. Guys don't seem to get that. Some women were saying, well, men don't understand body language. The hell they don't. They understand body language really well. They understand what's them. They know some big buff gay dudes was coming after them and trying to fuck them in the ass. They would sure understand what body language was then. So don't be making them kind of excuses for them. I refuse to believe that, and I refuse to accept it. What it is what they're really doing is what they say, not trying to hear that. And so that's why they act like they don't understand what they're seeing and they don't understand what they're hearing, because it's not what they want to see. It's not what they want to hear. So please don't come making stupid excuses like that in the comment section, because I will blow your fucking hair back. Let's not even do that. If you got that opinion, put it on your page or somewhere I won't see it, because that shit pisses me off. So, now that I want everybody to understand what rape is, okay? We understand what rape is. And I want you to understand that most rapists are repeat offenders, okay? Those are two key important attitudes that you need to understand. The third thing is that rapists start off very young, okay? The fourth thing is that men really believe that they have a right to women's bodies, whether the woman wants them to have that right or not. Okay, so those are four very key components to a rape culture and male mentality about it. Now let's talk about some of the things that go on in in the news. Let's talk about some of the things that have happened in the news. One thing is this hashtag that I started talking about. It's not rape if. Now this is basically a manifestation of a lot of males' belief that they don't understand what coercion is, they don't understand what consent is, and they think that having sex with somebody who's drunk or asleep is okay. Now I'm going to put up slide after slide with some actual memes that were made in accordance with that "it's not rape if" hashtag. They are deeply, deeply disturbing. The individuals who created them are fucked up in the head. I have nothing else to offer you. No scientific explanation, no medical definition. It's fucked up. Okay? Now that's my analysis and my diagnosis from Dr. Deb. They got that fucked up in the head disease. So let's talk about that though. Okay, I described for you the definition of rape. My thing is that I think every parent should sit down and print, go on the Department of Justice website, print that out and put it up in your house somewhere in your kids' room so they can read that shit every day. Especially your high school age sons and daughters. They need to understand what behaviors constitute rape. I mean, the little boys, claim that they don't know, and I could imagine that might be true if they've never had anyone explain it to them. And the same with the little girls. If they don't know, what kid is going to think to go on the Department of Justice website? You know what I mean? Really? Parents? Come on now, you dropping a ball here. Your daughters need to know what their rights are. Your sons need to know when they need to pull up and pull up and just shut up and just leave the girl alone. And I don't care if he's mid-stroking the pussy. If she says, stop now, I don't want to do this anymore, he's supposed to get up. He's supposed to stop. And that's what you need to teach your sons. They don't have any right to stick their fingers down a girl's pants. They don't have any right to touch her breasts. They don't have any right to kiss her. They don't have any right to grab her ass. They don't have any right to pull her clothes off. They used to call that swirling in the 90s before they stopped doing Freaknik. That's what they would do, get in big crowds and just pull girls' clothes off and, molest them and right there in front of everybody. So they stopped that shit because niggas was gonna start getting shot and killed if they had kept that up. And I think it's just very important that you teach your children, especially your male children, respect for female bodies. If it's not coming from you parents, who the hell do you think it's going to be coming from? We have too many young men running around here who just take all kind of liberties with female bodies, and they're gonna run up on the wrong man's daughter, and they're gonna end up dead, and you're gonna be sitting there trying to feel sad, talking about, but they didn't have to kill my son. Yes, they did, because you didn't teach your son any fucking manners. So, you parents, you fathers and mothers, you better get your shit together, because this is, it's about to get serious. Now, what I also want to talk about is what behaviors constitute a no from a girl. Okay. Now, we know she can open her mouth and say no. She can. She can say no. And you need to listen to her. It means no means no. It doesn't mean yes, or it doesn't mean keep pressuring her until she says yes. It means no. And groping girls and manhandling them and all this stuff, even though black women seem to have to kind of endure that in certain urban neighborhoods. It's like they're like monkeys, just like animals, touching all over the women and acting like they never saw a woman before and stuff. And it's just foul and disgusting behavior. There seems to be a lot of anger with these men, which it shows up in these studies on rape. A lot of the guys have some real anger issues when it comes to women, and they're very aggressive towards females, and it comes out in their attitudes about rape. As a matter of fact, well, before I go into this list, let me tell you about this other study that was done on a university. The study was small. I think it was University of North Dakota or something. And basically, they interviewed these male college students. This survey was explosive when it was released a couple of years ago. And they did a survey, and they found that a third of the young men said that in a situation where there was no consequences, that means where they would not be charged and nobody would know that they did it, a third of them admitted that they would force a woman to have sex with them. One third of these kids, okay, that's a lot, and they force a woman. Now, what they found is when they use the words like coercion or would you hold her down, they use like these polite euphemisms and descriptions that basically were rape. But they didn't use the rape word, that the guys were more willing to admit to those behaviors. But once they used the word rape, then they were like, oh, no, but then they were, a good 13-14% of the men surveyed admitted, even when they used the rape word, that they would rape a woman. Okay? So what you're looking at is a very, very confused generation of males. They have a lot of rage at women. I'm not sure why, but they think that they have just a lot of hostility, and they view this kind of stuff as exciting, and it's manly, and it's that women like it. That's what I see a lot online too. They think, well, that's the alpha male, and that's what women like. Women want to be forced and told what to do and all this kind of stuff. And that's not true. What you have to do with a woman is get consent. And parents, this is one of the things you need to look at too. Not just consent, not just a girl saying, oh, okay, well, I guess, all right. Okay, that's technically, I guess, consent, but it sounds more like coercion. What you have to teach your sons and daughters to give or look for is what's called enthusiastic consent. Enthusiastic consent is when you hold out your arm, she runs into him. Okay? When you say, how about this or that, are you going to, start kissing her? She turns around and she kisses you back and starts unbuttoning your shirt or unbuttoning hers. That's what you look for. That means she's a full participant in the activity, and she wants it as much as you do. If you have anything less than that, then you don't have enthusiastic consent, and you need to stop until you do. And there you go. How hard is that? And plus, it makes it more exciting anyway, because she really wants you. Versus you, pressuring and wheedling and begging and nagging her into it. That's not really going to give you the sexual response that you want. But yeah, I thought these guys really, they rape because they believe they just have the right, to take over your body. And the teenage girls uh, assume that the sexual coercion and sexual violence is normal, and because they've been told that men can't control themselves, that they get blue balls and all this old shit, and that it's their fault if the guy assaults them because she quote made him end quote horny. And I'm thinking, well then if using that logic, then they shouldn't have shit to say then when a man rapes them. You see what I'm saying? If you did something, it's your fault. You made him horny. You shouldn't have had your pants so tight. You shouldn't have been wearing that tight ass shirt looking like Eddie Long and all this old stuff, grinning. You shouldn't have had your hair so you should have had them earrings in. It makes you look like a girl. I mean, I could say all kind of shit to men about, why they got raped. If they think that's, a cute thing to say, I can come up with shit all day long to make it their fault that they got raped. But, we're trying to educate people here. And what I want people to do is to do better, to recognize when you're living in an environment that is considered a rape culture, and then do something about it and start with your own family. Start with your own children. And that is going to be the key to reducing these sexual assaults is education. Educating boys and girls about what they should and should not be doing with their own bodies and with other people's bodies. Okay, so let me talk about no. What means no? Well, if she could say no, like I said, she could say no with her mouth. She could turn her head when you try to kiss her. Okay, that means, I don't want you to kiss me. That's what that means. She could move away from you when you reach out to try to touch her. That means I don't want you to touch me. Okay, that doesn't mean you lean forward and run and grab her anyway. That means she doesn't want you to touch her. That's why she stepped back instead of towards you. Okay? When you touch her and she pushes your hand off of her. Okay, that's a sign. I don't want you to touch me. Leave me alone. When you start talking about sex and she frowns and makes the mean mug or looks away from you, she's looking disinterested and displeased. That means she don't want to hear that shit. She frowns when you try to touch her. That's another way that's indicating that she's not interested in what you're trying to get going here. When she moves to the other side of the room to get away from you, like at a party or something, other side of the club, other side of the room if it's a party. She don't want to be bothered with your ass. Understand what that means. That's another way to say no. When she starts looking around for an escape route, okay, she's scared. She's looking for a way to get the fuck up out of there. She's looking. That means no. That means whatever you was talking about, whatever you were trying to get going, she's not interested. I mean, she could just walk and just break out running away from you. Okay, I think that most men would understand what that means. Likewise, if she's too drunk or too high to walk or run away from you, she's like, all just in some cosmic space. She can't give consent in that state. So you taking advantage of her means you're raping her. Okay, you don't do that. And as parents, you need to tell your sons that when she is confused and passed out from the drugs that you slipped her, you fucking pervert. Okay, she can't give consent and you try to make sure of it by drugging her. All right, that's rape. When she starts crying because she's just like, she's just in a panic now. She doesn't know what else to do to get away from you. So she just breaks out and starts crying. That means that anything that you do after that, you're raping her. If she puts her head down and she refuses to look at you, okay, that's a sign. She's not interested in what you're talking about, sir. Leave her alone. If she's trembling and shaking, some girls get so scared they can't say anything. They can't scream. They can't do anything. Their voice, they just freeze. But they tremble, they shake. Okay, that's a sign that whatever you're doing to her or getting ready to do or thinking about doing, you need to not do it. When she refuses to take off her clothes, you up there telling her to take off your clothes, she says, she either says no or she just doesn't do it. Okay, that's not enthusiastic consent. Remember those words? If she's not really pulling her clothes off, that means she's not really interested in what you're talking about. If she shakes her head, now her voice, again, like I said, she might be frozen in fear in a certain way and not be able to talk, but she's shaking her head no. Okay, that still means no. That means no, and that means anything that you do after that, you're raping her. She can say stop. She can say leave me alone. She can say I don't want to. She can say what are you doing? She can say why are you doing this to me? She can say you're hurting me. All of those things mean you're raping her. If she's trying to push you off of her, push you away, anything you do after that, you're raping her. At least sexual assault. If she locks herself in the bathroom or someplace to get away from your ass, anything you do after that, guess what that means? Sexual assault. If she's screaming, you should get that, big boy. You should know what that means. If she say, help, somebody help me, that doesn't mean that you keep going. That means you stop because you're raping her. If she's just laying there like a dead fish showing total disinterest and she's like a corpse and she hasn't said anything, she hasn't shown you any enthusiastic consent, but you still trying to get your dick in her, you're raping her. So young ladies need to know this too, because they, a lot of them don't really understand that they have the right to say these things at any time, even if it's your boyfriend, even if it's your husband. Just because you have offered him sex on Tuesday don't mean that you're going to give it to him on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it doesn't mean that you want to give it to him twice on Tuesday. You decide when you want to have sex with a man, not him. He can certainly ask, he can certainly express his interest. But if you are not providing him with enthusiastic consent, anything he's doing after that, it constitutes sexual assault. And that is wrong. Young men need to understand that. I knew this guy, and he was working as a helicopter pilot, right? And he had this company down in LA. Took this man's daughter on a helicopter ride, and that was fine. But then he wanted to fuck her, and she's like, no. So they got, had landed the helicopter up on this mountain, and he, having a picnic and whatnot. And she didn't want to give him none, so he got in the helicopter and left her there. He left her on this mountain by herself. And so luckily, she walked down and she found a cabin, and the people, called, the sheriff came and they took her home and all that. And, the father was looking for dude. But I mean, you know what I mean? That's a situation of coercion, because he basically was telling her, if you don't give it up to me, then I'm going to leave you up here. And so she didn't give it to him, and he did leave her up there. But that's wrong. That is flat out wrong. Unfortunately, that happens. If somebody's groping you, like you passing down the street, right, and it's a crowd of folks, they feeling all the girls that go by, they slapping your butt. A lot of times women will get sexually harassed. They'll get, talked too crazy and demeaned. They'll get slapped and punched and cussed out and have shit thrown at them, and their breast grabbed and all this kind of stuff. All of those things constitute a sexual assault. And you need to tell your sons and be very clear with them about that, because we got some changes coming up on how stuff is going to be going. Niggas already getting gunned down right and left, and so y'all need to really watch your step, because then you're going to be giving people a reason. You're going to be giving women a reason as well as cops. So you need to watch your P's and Q's and keep your hands to your damn self. That's what you need to do. You need to respect women and respect women's boundaries, and stop trying to think that you have the right to assault somebody just because she was drinking, or just because she had on a backless top or a short skirt, or any of the other kind of reasons that people try to use to justify male violence against women. You can't talk about where women should go and what women should do and what women should wear or not go. And you should definitely stop talking to women about what they need to do to protect themselves from predators. Because see, that's what bothers me about that, is all the messages are being directed towards women on what to do to protect themselves from men, and nobody's telling men, stop fucking raping people. You see what I mean? It's like you just, take self-defense, and, go in pairs, and, go with only security, and go in well-lit paths, and be home by such and such a time, and all this stuff. All these things to avoid a sexual assault, but they aren't focusing on men to tell them this is what you need to stop doing, and these are the behaviors that constitute sexual assault and or rape. So that's why I'm doing this, because I want women to know as well as men, especially young ladies. You got, girls headed off to college soon, or, maybe they're already there. They may not know what the behaviors are that constitute rape, and they should. They must absolutely understand it. What was I going to say? I'm losing my train of thought here. Well, bottom line though, we got a lot of the violence, male violence, and this hyper masculinity and victim blaming going on, especially in the black community, from little girls on up. The community at large seems very most willing to excuse sexual violence against women and girls and to protect men even when they know that they're guilty. In families and stuff, it's like, oh well, we don't want to send another black man to jail. The fuck? He's up there, but you don't not too worried about what happened to the girls he molested. You're not too worried about the women he's raping. You're more worried about his nigger ass and keeping him out of prison. See, I'm like, no, no, you need to be underneath the jail. I'ma sing like a fucking canary and tell every ounce of what the dirt that you did and hope that you go to prison for fucking life and get raped every goddamn day. That's what I'm gonna hope. But I'm not that type. So you do some egregious shit to a kid or to a woman, I'ma tell it, I'ma tell it, I'ma tell it. I'ma tell it, I'ma be a witness and I'ma testify and I'ma do everything I can to make sure your ass fries. But this whole thing about thinking that all these kind of violent acts and words and deeds against women and girls is acceptable, that if you see some shit on the street going down or you see somebody doing something in a club or whatever and it's wrong, don't turn your head and don't let it happen. You don't have to necessarily intervene, especially if you're a female, but what you can do is call 911. What you can do is alert security. If there's some in a store or at a club or wherever you alert security to what's going down. Don't just ignore it. And these guys need to be stopped. And the only way that they're going to be stopped is if we stick to certain rules. Like I said, the enthusiastic consent being the number one, and that you educate your sons and daughters about sexual assaults and sexual violence and appropriate behavior regarding the word no and stop and I don't want to. Okay, those are very, very important. They're key in dating for both adults and teens. And I hope that this is educational. I know it's a lot of information. The video is a lot longer than what I've been trying to do these days, but we had a lot of ground to cover, and I wanted to make sure that I got it all in. This is Deb Cooper from survivingdating.com, just closing out a discussion on rape culture and enthusiastic consent and what it means for women to survive and thrive in an environment of male sexual violence. That was the discussion on this video. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to check out some of the other videos. There's almost 200 videos on the channel at this point, so I'm sure there's something that will interest you. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.